All right, I can't believe I have to make this video, but yet here we are. Somebody had to make it. Something needs to be done, and I feel compelled to make this video, so that's why I'm making it. So recently, I was at a big high school jazz festival, very important festival, not just like a local little thing, but like a big, kind of a big deal thing in the state. As I was sitting there listening to this band play, their director put pieces of music on the stands at the front. Totally cool. I know somebody was there, noticed that it was manuscript paper with solos written out. Each soloist in the band then came up to the front to take their solo in a typical jazz band type thing, and they all stared exactly at the paper and played the most unenthusiastic, etude-like solos you can ever imagine. You might say maybe they were just reading the chord changes. They were not. They were reading written solos, okay? So I'm going to get into all this. They were reading written solos there, and I was just like, this is the most obvious thing ever. Why are we doing this? We're going to get into that. Why are they doing this? Why is it seemingly accepted? Why is it something that people feel like they should or could do? And I was just sitting there and I was kind of like, this is ridiculous. And then I had heard that there was, other groups. There were other groups that did this. There was another group that did this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So a group that happened to end up winning this festival, I had heard that they were doing the same thing. So I didn't hear this band live. I went back and watched a video of them playing at this festival and then a festival they had played a few months prior. Every single solo was the exact same. Well, do you have to improvise in jazz? That's not what this video is about. Did they say they were improvising? Well, the director didn't come on stage and say, we are now going to improvise. They weren't saying that, so I guess it's not illegal. I'm going to talk about a little later in the section about why this is bad or unfair or something is when you're at a competition or something where there's an improvisation score and there's rules about things must be improvised to then accept a high score for improvisation over other bands, higher than every other band there, to then not actually be improvising your solos, I think is incredibly embarrassing. Those directors should be ashamed of it. I'm going to get into it, of reasons why they might be doing it and why I think this isn't a good thing to do at all. Now, what prompted this, obviously, is this specific high school jazz festival, but this is something that I want to really talk about because it's not just about this one festival or these couple bands or whatever, but it's this idea of instead of teaching improvisation, instead of going through the process, instead of learning the craft of improvisation in this music, of just as a teacher giving a student a solo to read in lieu of improvisation. Now, here's what I'm not talking about. Here's what I'm not talking about in this video. I'm not talking about you're playing, Glenn Miller's In the Mood, and you're going to play that tenor and alto thing back and forth, where the tenor, blah, blah, beep, blah, and then the trumpet solo at the end. Sure. Obviously, like classic tunes that have specific, like classic solos, or even not in a jazz context. You're playing like, Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. You're going to play that Clarence Clemons tenor solo. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what I'm talking about here. So don't say, oh, well, certain songs require classic things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about playing written solos as a way to get better at harmony, sight reading, get inside someone's playing. I practiced with the Omni book. That is a collection of someone else's transcriptions of Charlie Parker's solos. Did I transcribe all those solos? No, I did not. Did I read them and memorize a lot of them? Yes, I did. Did I stop there? No, I did not. And I'll talk about how we can get past this in a minute. But that's also not what I'm talking about. I'm also not talking about playing written solos in rehearsals so you can just get that confidence and experience. I know for a lot of school bands, the charts come with written out solos. It's like a guide. It's like, hey, this can work over the song. That's a great starting point, especially if the director or the student aren't familiar with improvisation. It's like, hey, these ideas work. So maybe start with the written solo and learn it from there. And then there's always a beyond that. There's always a next step. And that's kind of what this whole video is about. Also, what I'm not talking about is learning solos, whether it's transcriptions, your own transcriptions that you're doing, or learning pieces of people's solos and then using elements of them in your solo. That's totally fine. That's not just, ripping off a solo or playing a written solo. That's using elements of it, just like you use elements of vocabulary that you've learned to then have a conversation, to then improvise. That's also not what I'm talking about here when I talk about playing written solos. When I talk about this with people, or if I say something online about it, I always get the devil's advocate people, and they mean well. It's totally fine. But here are some excuses that to me do not hold up when talking about playing written solos just as a blanket thing. The first excuse that doesn't hold up is that the band director doesn't know how to teach improvisation. I'll talk about what you can do with that later. The second excuse that doesn't hold up is that the band director or the teacher doesn't actually know how to improvise themselves. The greatest gig they might play is playing some Bruno Mars covers on Saturday night. That's totally fine. You don't have to be a great improviser to have students that flourish with improvisation. I'm going to also talk about how you can do that in a little bit. The third excuse that doesn't hold up, and it's one of the ones I think I saw on stage and in those videos, is that the band director in this case wants to win. So either they write out or they have somebody write out a solo that sounds really good. It fits the song really well. And they just play that over and over again, passing it off as improvisation when they're really just playing a written etude or a transcription. That might, yes, it might sound good. It might work. In the case of the one band I heard, it didn't actually sound that great, but that's another story. But that excuse does not hold up, that they just want to win. And the final excuse to me that does not hold up at all is that the students are scared of improvisation. This is probably the number one excuse that I get from people when I post this, and they mean well. I say like, hey, don't play written solos. And somebody says, hey, listen, I teach middle school kids and I have a jazz band, but like they're so petrified of improvising, of making a mistake. I totally get it. Listen, I taught middle school band for 11 years, middle school jazz bands, concert for 11 years. I totally get it. But you have to, as a band director, as a music teacher, take that fear away. That's why I went on this big masterclass thing about taking the fear out of improvisation. In fact, last year, 2024, I'm filming this in 25. I did a clinic at the National Jazz Festival. This one was not called Taking the Fear Out of Improvisation. That was a previous one, but this was called Jam Session 101. And in this one, I talked about, hey, these are some elements of having a jam session. If you want to put one together with your friends or go to one at a place, these are some elements of a jam session. So I talked about like how you sign up, how you form the band, how you talk about tunes, whatever, but we were actually having a jam session. And there were a couple kids I noticed in the back that brought their horns. They were like middle school or early high school age. And they brought their horns, their two saxophones, sitting in the back, and they got their horns out of their cases like they wanted to play. But the entire time, it was like an hour long, they didn't come up to play. And then finally, for the last tune, I was like, we're going to play a blues to end it. We're going to get like a ton of people up. We're just going to play blues. And I called them out basically, and their friends were like egging them on. So I knew it was like cool. And I knew they wanted to do it, but they were scared. Like a lot of your directors might be saying, or if you're a director, you might be saying, my students are so scared about making a mistake. And, there's a lot more that goes into the rehearsal aspect of it, of building that, for lack of a better word, safe space to make those mistakes in improvisation. But I was building that safe space here. There's maybe 100 people in this room. They were like nervous to do it. So I asked them to come up. And during the tune, I went and talked to them. I said, hey, I want you guys to solo. And they were so scared. So what I did was I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to just do a call and response. I'm going to play a measure. You play measure back. Let's figure out the first note. Oh, it's concert B flat. So one kid was on tenor, one was on alto. G, C, bam. And do you know your blues scale? Let's just do the second note, B flat or E flat. And what ended up happening was, and I'm going to show you the clip in a second, they were at first so scared, as you'll see. And even after they were done, they're like, oh, it wasn't good or whatever. But like you hear the crowd getting excited, you see them get excited, and they were smiling because they realized, one, I can do this. Two, I don't need to know 8 billion, theoretical things. I don't need to play Charlie Parker licks. I can just like know a couple things and just, I can dip my feet, my toes into the water here and get further and further along. This is just the beginning stages. But if you're so scared, you're paralyzed that you can't do it, and your director isn't helping you, or if you're a director, you're not helping them take that first step, they're never going to be able to do it. So check out this clip. I'm really proud of this. This was my favorite moment from the clinic, was when I did some call and response with these kids back and forth. Check it out. How awesome was that? It just makes me feel good. When I was watching that back, I was like, man, that was so cool, because I bet that if somebody else did that with them previously, they would have come there with more confidence. And hopefully now, I don't know where they are, I don't know their names. Going forward, they could be more confident as well. I'm going to talk in a bit about what you can do if you're a director or if you're a student, about how to really get people in, whether they're scared or you don't know about improvisation or whatever. But just that little thing I showed you, that's why that thing about they're scared of improvising, they don't want to make a mistake. Yeah, you're right. None of us want to make a mistake. Very few of us go out like, you know what? I don't care if I completely screw up and make a fool out of myself in front of all my friends and maybe not my friends. I don't care. And especially middle school age, high school age, you got to remember what's going on. There's a lot of that happening. So that's another excuse that really doesn't hold up to me. All right, now let's talk about why this whole thing I think is bad. Why just playing written solos in a concert like this setting is bad. The first reason is that it doesn't let the students take risks and actually be creative. Not every kid in jazz band wants to be a professional jazz musician. Some people are like, man, just like tell a story with your playing. Like, yeah, say that to a 15-year-old who's never improvised before. They're going to be like, what are you talking about? It's not about that. But when I say be creative, I mean like, you know what? Like I did the call and response to those kids. Let's like try something. Do you like honking out low notes? Cool. Let's find a song where we can honk out low notes, with a good groove, and we can play these notes. Try these notes. Try this groove. Let's try this. Do you like that? Do you not like that? What do you like about it? Let's mess with it. Let them be creative and try it out. I would always rather hear a student play a bad improvised solo over a perfectly polished written solo. In this setting, once again, we're in a jazz setting where you're going up and taking a solo on a blues or something. I'd much rather have you come up and say, you know what? I'm going to try to actually improvise over this based on everything I've practiced, everything I've listened to. Even if it fails, you can say, okay, first of all, nobody got killed. We're just playing music here. But secondly, how can I make it better? And then you build upon that. And that gives the students the confidence to build and build and build and build and build. The second reason I think this process of just giving someone a written solo like this is bad is that it teaches them that the product is the most important thing. Wherever they are in their improvisational process, well, hey, you're not there yet, so I'm just going to give you a written solo to play because I want you to be at this level. Well, not everybody's going to be at the level you want them to be. And to just say, you know what? I don't think your improv solo is good enough to put on stage, so instead of maybe helping you out, giving you more resources, giving you that support, I'm just going to give you a written solo to play. You're just going to play someone else's stuff. It just teaches them that, once again, the product is the most important thing. And in their mind, well, if they ever fall short even a little bit, or they're ever not at that level, everything they did is basically for naught. It's like everything they practice. And here's the thing that makes me so sad about what I heard. Those kids might be like great improvisers, or they might really love improvising, but they basically got that taken away from them by their director. He said, you know what? You might be having fun playing, but I want you to play this 2/5 here. So I'm just going to give you a written solo and you better play it. What? Right? That just, at this point, we're just playing, like in a classical ensemble where everything's written out. We're a marching band where basically everything's written out. One of the greatest elements of jazz that I love is improvisation. Now, improvisation happens in other styles of music, sure. Just because it's jazz doesn't mean it has to have improvisation. But to say to someone, hey, I know there's supposed to be an improvised solo here, but I don't want you to do it. I want you to play this instead. That just sucks. The third and most practical reason, most down-to-earth, like concrete reason why this specific process of giving kids solos to just play instead of improvising is very bad, is that in these festivals, like I mentioned at the beginning, in these competitions, there's an improvisation score that is a big part of your overall score. So if you get a perfect score or a near perfect score for improvisation, and that puts you way above the other bands, but you didn't improvise a single thing, I mean, that's basically cheating, right? You're literally not doing what it says, but kind of passing it off as if it is. Now, once again, did they come out and say, we are not improvising, we're just doing this? No. Did they come out and say, we are improvising? No, they didn't say any of that. The judges, I guess, have to assume, once again, jazz judges. That's another thing. I'm not talking about are jazz festivals good or bad or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But this kind of hurts the legitimacy of a festival, hurts the legitimacy of whatever, if they are clearly not doing what is said to be done, right? If the judges said, listen, that sounded like you were reading, and they were like, no, we just taught our students to play just like an etude. Okay, But then even still, then their score shouldn't have been that high because then they weren't sounding like they were true improvisation. There's a lot of gray area here, but it really sucks to see kids who probably could improvise well and who, if worked on it and they had people to teach them, they'd be great at it. But instead, they just get that taken away from them and say, just do this instead because we'll win or we'll score high. That sucks again. The good news is there is something that we can all do about this. If you're a student and you're in a school where your teacher says you have to play written solos, or they give you solos, or they say to you, go to your private teacher and have them write out something or whatever, maybe say like, hey, I would really like to learn to improvise better. And, I would like to learn to also improvise. Yes, I'll learn this written solo or something, but maybe would it be okay if I can take some elements of it and work through it in rehearsal, or maybe play parts of it and then work on my other parts? And then you can say, if you're once again a student, to your teacher, hey, can you help me with it? And if not, it's totally fine. Can you point me in the direction of someone or something that can? There are thousands and thousands of resources online. That could be a little paralysis by analysis, though. You go into YouTube. I've always talked about it before. You just type in, how do I improvise in jazz? Click. That's, you're going to get 8 billion different conflicting kind of things. You got to be a little more specific. That's where having maybe a private teacher, an online course type thing helps, or going to your own band director, if they are a jazz musician or at least studied it a bit, they can help you. Sometimes the directors, and I'm speaking to the students now, so I'm speaking to the students here. Sometimes your directors don't realize that you want to, because they say like, who wants to solo? And nobody raises their hand. So in their mind, it's easier to just be like, just play this written solo and none of you want to. You might want to. Go to your director and say, I would like to. But like, hey, can we do it in a way where I'm not like thrown to the wolves? Like I did with that call and response. Say to the director, hey, can we just do like a simple thing here? Can we start small, whatever? Your director hopefully is going to be like, you know what? I didn't realize that you wanted to, and I'm going to help you out or something. Listen, not everybody's perfect. Not every band director knows what you're thinking. Okay. So if you're a student, go to your director. If you have a private teacher, go to them, say, you would like to do this. I want to do it the right way. Help me out. I think it'll be a better thing for you and a better thing for everybody. If you are a band director, I'm talking to you. If you're a music teacher, band director, and you're one of these people who gives written solos, but you're not doing it in a malicious way. You're not doing it just to win. You're not doing it to take it away from them, but you don't know how to teach improvisation. You're not a jazz musician. Not every band director is a jazz musician. Fun fact, most aren't. That's one of the things when I talk to my musician friends who aren't teachers, they say how, man, I did this clinic at this school and this director didn't know, about this player and this. I'm like, think about it. When you go to school to be a music educator, you have to be certified, at least I was, in everything, strings and vocal and all this concert band stuff. And jazz is just a part of that. If you happen to get a job at a school where jazz is a big thing and you don't know about jazz, I think it's your duty as the teacher to then, at least, I don't know, inform yourself a bit more about it. Not that you have to be the best jazz player in the world or even know everything, but here's the thing, know what you don't know. Know what you don't know. If you're a director and you get a tune and you're like, I want to do this song this year and it's got really hard chord changes, you know what? And you text your friend who's a jazz musician, write me out a solo over giant steps, whatever. All right. And you just give it to them. Maybe if you don't know how to solo over it, or you don't know how to teach soloing over it, you find, like I said to the students, you find some resources. You can find resources for yourself online to then inform yourself and then maybe give to your students. Also, reach out to other teachers and other musicians. I'm sure you know someone who's a good jazz improviser or another teacher who can teach it well. You should be well-versed in how to teach improvisation, even at the most basic level. Even if it's just, hey, we're going to focus on one note and play in the pocket. That's a great start. Hey, now we're going to branch out. You can do the thing like what beginner band teachers do on their not main instrument, is just stay a step ahead of them in the book, right? I had to teach oboe one year. Oh my God. So I was like a couple pages ahead. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to teach you these 5 notes. The problem is if a kid really practiced a lot and he's like, hey, I actually want 10 pages ahead. I'm like, let me catch up, right? When you're teaching improvisation, you can be like, you know what? I'm just going to learn along with you. Let's learn this together. And it could be something fun that you do with your students. But you can't say, well, I don't know how to improvise. I don't know how to teach improvisation. So you're only playing written solos. Hey, knock, knock, Mr., Mrs. Band Director, whoever. This isn't about you. Teaching isn't about you. It's not about how great you are or how ineffective you are. It's about, hey, let me find the best way to help out the students with any resource I have or I can get. Now, if you are a band director who is out there who just goes, you know what, screw all this. I want to play really hard music and I want to have solo sections that sound amazing. And instead of teaching my kids, I'm just going to give them written solos. I have some advice for you. Go f yourself. Whew. Okay. So I think I got it all out. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Put them in the comments below. If you've come across this before, if you're a director, if you're a student, if you were in this kind of situation and you got out of it, that would be amazing to hear. Or, hey, you're the band director who didn't know a lot, but you did find resources and find ways to do it. I know that there's great directors out there who aren't the best jazz improvisers, and that's totally fine. And, it's not their main instrument or whatever. And they find resources and they find ways to help out the students. And that's the number one thing, is how are we going to help out the students? Giving them just a written solo to play at a competition or whatever, just so your band sounds good. That's not the way to do it. I hope this video really shed some light on something that you may or may not have known is happening. You may have known it. Like I said, before I checked out those videos, I thought certain things, but now I know, and I had to say something about it. I think a lot of people are scared to say things because they don't want to ruffle feathers or they're not sure. But listen, if this is happening, and I know it is, we need to put an end to it. If that means we're going to hear a lot worse solos for a little while because everybody's been playing written solos, that's fine. That's totally fine. The idea here is not the product of perfection. The idea is the process of improvisation and learning. And then hopefully in that process, we start to love it. Students start to love it. It gets better. And then the product is great because not only does it just objectively sound great, but the fact that we got there in a good way, it's a creative outlet for the people, the students, the musicians, and it's something that they can build towards and work towards and now have the skills to do. That's the goal. That's what I'm looking for here. If you're about to go to the comments down below and you're like, hey, I want resources, I want this stuff, how do I get better? Do you have any recommendations? Well, I have a bunch of resources here on my YouTube channel. In the description down below, I have improvisation playlist, a whole bunch of videos. They're all 100% free right here on YouTube. You can click that are about improvisation. They teach a bunch of different topics. It's not linear, so you might find a bunch of different things there. Most of them have PDFs, like worksheets that go along with them. That'll be really great for you. There's also a saxophone specific playlist. That's not improvisation focused. It's just saxophone. But if you're a saxophone player, that would help you out as well. Thank you so much for your time and for watching, and I will see you in the next video.